The rifle shot echoed through the canyon just as Olivia Kane realized she was alone in the world, staring at the freshly turned earth of her father's grave with nothing but $17 and a deed to land she'd never seen. It was 1878 in Calistoga, California, and the small cemetery overlooked the valley where vineyards had started replacing cattle ranches, though the old ways died hard in these parts. Olivia stood rigid as the other mourners filtered away, their murmured condolences lost in the wind that swept down from the Palisades. Her black dress hung loose on her frame, bought second-hand from the general store because her father's illness had drained what little savings they'd had. She was 22 years old and felt ancient. "Miss Kane." The voice came from behind her, deep and careful. "I'm sorry for your loss." She turned to find a man she didn't recognize, tall and lean in worn denims and a dusty hat he held respectfully in his hands. His face was weathered from sun and wind, with lines around his eyes that spoke of years squinting into harsh light, but those eyes themselves were kind. Maybe 30 years old, she guessed. His dark hair needed cutting. "Thank you," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Name's Yates Cross. I worked with your father on the railroad survey last summer. He was a good man, always spoke highly of you." He shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable. "I know this isn't the time, but I wanted you to know if you need anything, any kind of help. I've got a small ranch about 10 miles north. It's not much, but the offer stands." Olivia felt her throat tighten. Charity. That's what she'd become now, an object of pity. "I'll be fine, Mr. Cross." "But thank you." He looked like he wanted to say more but just nodded, placed his hat back on his head and walked away. She watched him mount a bay horse and ride off, dust trailing behind him. The truth was she wouldn't be fine. Her father's medical bills had consumed everything, and the landlord had made it clear the boarding house room needed to be vacated by week's end. The land deed in her pocket was for a plot somewhere in the hills, but her father had never seen it either. He'd won it in a card game years ago and always talked about building something there someday. That someday never came. 3 days later, Olivia stood outside the land office with her single carpet bag, studying the crude map the clerk had drawn. Her plot was 12 miles into the hills, accessible only by an old mining road. No structures, no water source marked, nothing but 160 acres of California wilderness. "You sure about this, miss?" the clerk had asked, peering at her over his spectacles. "That's rough country for a woman alone." She'd lifted her chin. "I'll manage." Now, standing in the dusty street with wagons rumbling past and miners shouting at each other outside the saloon, she felt the first real tremor of fear, but there was nowhere else to go. Her mother had died when she was 12, and she had no siblings, no aunts or uncles who'd claimed her. Just this deed in her own 2 hands. She bought supplies with her remaining money. Flour, beans, salt pork, a battered pot, 1 blanket, matches, and a small axe. The storekeeper threw in a dented canteen for free, probably out of pity. Then she started walking. The road deteriorated quickly once she left town, becoming little more than twin ruts through scrub brush and oak trees. The August sun beat down mercilessly, and her dress grew damp with sweat. She'd walked maybe 5 miles when she heard hoofbeats behind her. "Miss Kane." She turned to see Yates Cross riding toward her, leading a second horse, a gentle-looking mare. He reined in beside her, his expression concerned. "What are you doing out here on foot?" he asked. "Going to my land." She gestured vaguely northward. He glanced at her carpet bag, then at the sun beginning its descent toward the western hills. "That's another 7 miles at least. You won't make it before dark, and there's mountain lions in these parts." "I don't have a choice, Mr. Cross." "Yates," he corrected. And yes, you do, you can ride. He dismounted and gestured to the mare. This is Daisy. She's gentle as a lamb. I was heading up to check my northern fence line anyway. Your land borders mine as it happens. Olivia stared at the horse. Pride warred with practicality, and practicality won. Her feet already hurt, and the thought of mountain lions made her skin prickle. "Thank you," she said quietly. He helped her into the saddle, his hands careful and impersonal, then secured her bag behind her. They rode in silence for a while, the horses maintaining an easy pace. The landscape grew rougher, more beautiful in a wild way. Oak gave way to pine, and the air cooled slightly. "Your father talked about you a lot," Yates said finally. "Said you could read and write better than any teacher. Said you had a good head for numbers. He was generous in his assessments." The words came out sharper than she intended. "I don't think so. He said you kept his books when he was surveying, caught errors the company accountants missed." That was true, but it seemed like another lifetime. "Much good it does me now." "Why do you say that?" She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. His profile was strong, nose slightly crooked like it had been broken once. He rode like someone who'd spent his whole life on horseback, easy and natural. "Because I'm a woman with no money, no family and land, I can't possibly work alone. I'm not fool enough to think otherwise. You're also someone who walked 7 miles into rough country without complaint because she didn't have another option. That counts for something. Does it?" The bitterness in her voice surprised her. "Or does it just mean I'm too stubborn to know when I'm beaten?" He was quiet for a moment. "There's worse things to be." The sun was touching the hilltops when they reached the boundary of her land. There was no marker, but Yates pointed to a lightning-struck tree. "That's your southwest corner. My fence runs along the ridge there." They rode on, and Olivia's heart sank with every step. The land was beautiful in its way, rolling hills covered in grass and wildflowers, stands of pine and oak, but there was nothing here. No cabin, no barn, not even a shed, just wilderness. "There's a spring," Yates said, as if reading her thoughts. He led her to a spot where water bubbled up between rocks, forming a small pool before trickling away down the hillside. "That's good. Water's the most important thing." Olivia slid off the horse and stood looking at the spring, then at the vast emptiness around her. The reality of her situation crashed over her like a wave. She had no shelter, no way to build one, no animals, no crops. Winter would come eventually, and she would die here alone. "I can't do this," she whispered. "What was that?" She turned to face him, and something inside her cracked. "I said I can't do this. Look at this place. Look at me. I don't know the first thing about building a cabin or planting crops or any of it. My father always did everything, and I just kept his books and cooked his meals, and now he's gone and I'm here and I don't know what to do." Her voice broke. "I'm not good enough for this. I'm not strong enough or smart enough or capable enough. I'm going to fail and I'll probably die doing it." The words hung in the air between them. She'd said it out loud, the fear that had been gnawing at her since her father took his last breath. She wasn't enough. She'd never been enough. Yates dismounted slowly and walked over to her. His expression was serious but not pitying. "You done?" She blinked at him. "What? Are you done telling yourself lies?" He gestured around them. "Because I heard a lot of words just now, but none of them were true. You don't know anything about me. I know you walked 7 miles in the heat rather than beg for help. I know your father trusted you with work that grown men couldn't do right. I know you're standing here planning to make a go of raw land when most people would have sold that deed and run back east." He took a step closer. "And I know you're wrong about yourself. How can you possibly know that?" "Because I've seen enough people in my life to recognize the difference between someone who's actually weak and someone who just thinks they are. You're not weak, Olivia Kane. You're scared, and that's different." Something about the way he said her name, firm and certain, made her throat tighten. Being scared and being incapable amount to the same thing. No, they don't. He pushed his hat back. Listen, I'm not good with words, but I'm good with my hands. I can help you build a cabin. Simple one to start, just 4 walls and a roof, but it'll keep the weather out. I've got extra timber from when I expanded my barn. I can't pay you. Did I ask for payment? Why would you help me? The question came out almost angry. You don't know me. You owe me nothing. He held her gaze and something flickered in his eyes. Maybe I see something worth helping. Before she could respond, he turned and started surveying the area. We'll build there near the spring but on high ground. Good drainage. Sun exposure for most of the day. I'll bring supplies tomorrow and we'll start. Yates, you'll what? Keep telling yourself you can't do it. That's your choice, but I'm telling you different. I'm telling you that you can, and I'm going to prove it to you. He mounted his horse. I'll be here at first light. Try to get some rest. Wait, you're leaving me here. He reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a bedroll. You can use this. I've got another at home, and here. He handed her a cloth bundle that smelled like bread and smoked meat. It's not much, but it'll keep you until tomorrow. What about the mountain lions? Build a fire and keep it going. They won't come near flames. He pointed to a deadfall oak. Plenty of wood there. You know how to make a fire, she nodded, though she'd only done it a handful of times. Good. I'll see you in the morning. He tipped his hat and rode off, leading Daisy behind him. Olivia stood alone as the last light faded from the sky. The enormity of the wilderness pressed in around her, and for a moment, panic fluttered in her chest. Then she looked at the bedroll in her hands, the bundle of food, the spring bubbling peacefully nearby. Yates Cross believed she could do this. She wasn't sure why his belief mattered, but it did. She gathered wood as darkness fell, her hands soon covered in dirt and tree bark. The first match sputtered out. So did the second. On the third try, the kindling caught, and soon she had a small fire crackling. She sat beside it, eating bread and meat, listening to the night sounds of birds and insects and distant animal calls. The stars came out, more than she'd ever seen in town, a vast glittering blanket across the black sky. Her father had taught her some of the constellations when she was small. She found Ursa Major, then followed the pointer stars to Polaris. As long as she could find north, she couldn't be completely lost. She wrapped herself in the bedroll and lay close to the fire. Sleep came in fits and starts, but she survived the night. When gray dawn light filtered through the trees, she was stiff and sore but alive. She rekindled the fire and used the last of the bread for breakfast, then walked down to the spring to wash her face. The cold water shocked her awake. She studied her reflection in the pool, barely recognizing the woman looking back. Her brown hair had come loose from its pins, her face was smudged with soot, and her eyes looked huge in her thin face. She looked like someone who'd been through a war. Maybe she had been. The sound of wagons brought her head up. Yates appeared through the trees, driving a loaded wagon with 2 horses in harness. Behind him, on horseback, came another man, older and grizzled. "Morning," Yates called. "This is my neighbor, Frank Olson. He's going to help with the heavy work." Frank touched his hat brim. "Madam." Olivia became acutely aware of her disheveled appearance but forced herself to stand straight. "Thank you for coming." The 2 men unloaded the wagon. Rough cut lumber, a bag of nails, tools, canvas for a temporary roof. Yates had thought of everything. He walked the site with her, explaining where they'd place the cabin, how they'd construct it. "Nothing fancy," he said, "but sound. We'll dig a shallow foundation, set posts, build up the walls. Frank and I can have the basic structure up in 3 days if the weather holds. 3 days." It seemed impossible. "We'll work fast. You can help by measuring and marking where we tell you. That good head for numbers your father mentioned will come in handy. So began the hardest 3 days of Olivia's life. The men worked from sunup to sundown, and she did everything they asked, holding boards steady, marking measurements, fetching tools and water. Her hands blistered and bled. Her back ached. But slowly, impossibly, walls rose from the bare ground. Yates worked with focused intensity, his movements economical and sure. She watched him lift heavy timbers that should have required 2 men, saw the way he checked and rechecked every joint to make sure it was sound. He rarely spoke while working, but when he did, it was to explain what he was doing or to teach her something. "See how this beam sits," he said on the second afternoon, pointing to where a crosspiece met an upright. "That's a mortise and tenon joint, stronger than nails alone. The wood fits together like a puzzle." She leaned in to look, acutely aware of his nearness. He smelled like pine sap and honest sweat. "It's beautiful," she said, surprising herself. "The way it fits so perfectly." He glanced at her, a slight smile touching his lips. "You see it. Most people don't, they just see lumber." "What do you mean?" "The craft of it, the way everything has to work together, each piece supporting the others, building something that'll last." He ran his hand along the beam. "There's satisfaction in that. Is that why you became a rancher? To build something lasting?" His expression clouded slightly. "Among other reasons." She wanted to ask more, but Frank called for help, and the moment passed. That night, with the walls complete and the roof framework in place, the 3 of them sat around her fire eating the dinner Frank had brought from his wife. Stew and biscuits and canned peaches. It was the best meal Olivia had tasted in months. "You've got a good piece of land here, Miss Kane," Frank said, wiping his mouth. "Good grass, good water, run some cattle, you could make a living." "I don't have any cattle," she said, "or money to buy them." "Yet," Yates said quietly. She looked at him across the fire. "What does that mean?" "Means things change. You didn't have a cabin 3 days ago either." Frank chuckled. "He's got a point. You're already better off than you were." After Frank left, Yates lingered. He banked the fire properly, showing her how to cover it so it would burn slow through the night. Then he stood, brushing off his hands. "We'll finish the roof tomorrow, hang a door. After that, you'll have a home." "Yates." She stood too, facing him in the firelight. "Why are you doing all this? And don't say it's because my father was a good man or because you see something worth helping. Tell me the real reason." He was quiet for a long moment, his face half in shadow. "I told you I'm not good with words. Try." He pushed his hat back, a gesture she was coming to recognize as something he did when uncomfortable. 5 years ago, I was working on a ranch down in Arizona Territory. Got trampled by a spooked horse, broke my leg in 3 places. Ranch owner wanted to turn me out, said I was useless. His daughter argued for me, said everyone deserved a chance to prove they could recover." He paused. "She won the argument. I healed up, worked that ranch another 2 years before I saved enough to buy my own place up here. What happened to her? Married a banker from Tucson. But I never forgot what she did. She saw someone worth fighting for when everyone else saw a burden." He met Olivia's eyes. "When I look at you, I see someone fighting to prove they're worth something. But you don't need to prove it. You already are." Her breath caught. "You don't know me well enough to say that. Don't I? I've watched you these 3 days. You haven't complained once, even when your hands started bleeding. You asked questions when you didn't understand something instead of pretending you did. You listened when I taught you things. And you kept getting up every morning even though you're terrified." He took a step closer. "That's not someone who isn't good enough. That's someone who's exactly enough." Tears pricked her eyes and she blinked them back furiously. She would not cry in front of this man who'd already done so much. "I don't feel like enough. I know, but feelings aren't always facts." He reached out, hesitated, then gently took her hand, the one with the worst blisters. His touch was careful, almost reverent. These hands built a home. That's a fact. She looked down at their joined hands, his rough and scarred, hers torn and blistered, and something shifted in her chest. Not just gratitude, though there was that. Something warmer, more dangerous. I should go, he said, but didn't move. Early start tomorrow. Yes, she whispered, but didn't pull her hand away. They stood like that for a heartbeat longer, then he released her and stepped back. Good night, Olivia. Good night. She watched him ride away into the darkness, then sat heavily by the fire. Her hand still tingled where he'd held it. She pressed it to her chest, feeling her heart race. No, she couldn't do this. Couldn't let herself feel this. He was being kind, that was all. The last thing he needed was a broken woman with nothing to her name mooning after him like some foolish girl. She had to focus on survival, on building a life here. Romance was for people who had the luxury of it. But sleep was long in coming, and when it did, she dreamed of strong hands and a voice saying she was enough. The next day dawned clear and hot. Yates and Frank arrived early and spent the morning securing the roof, laying pine boughs and canvas over the frame. It wouldn't be permanent, but it would keep the rain out until proper shingles could be afforded. You'll need a door, Frank said, measuring the opening. I've got an extra one in my barn, nothing fancy, but it'll do. I'll bring it by tomorrow. I can't take your door, Olivia protested. Sure you can. Been sitting unused for 2 years, might as well serve a purpose. He winked at her. Besides, Yates here would have my hide if I let you sleep without a proper door, mountain lions and all. Yates said nothing, but she caught the slight color in his cheeks. By late afternoon, the cabin was finished. 4 walls, a roof, a window opening covered with oiled paper that let in light, and space for the door Frank promised. Inside, it was dim and smelled of fresh-cut wood. Yates had built a simple raised platform in one corner for a bed and a shelf along one wall. It's not much, he said, standing in the center of the single room. Olivia turned slowly, taking it in. 12 by 14 feet of space that was entirely hers. She'd lived in boarding houses and rented rooms her whole adult life, never had anything that truly belonged to her. And now this. It's perfect, she said, and her voice broke. Frank cleared his throat. Well, I'd best be getting home. Wife will wonder where I am. He tipped his hat. You need anything, Miss Kane. Our place is about 8 miles east. Just follow the creek. Thank you, Frank, for everything. After he left, Yates showed her how to check the roof for leaks, how to bank the fire in the small hearth they'd built. He'd thought of everything, even carved a simple latch for the door. I'll bring you some furniture from my place, he said. Extra chair, a table. I'll build you a proper bed frame when I can. You've done enough. She looked at him, standing in her cabin, and felt overwhelmed. More than enough. I don't know how to repay you, don't want repayment. Yates, what I want, he interrupted, then stopped. He turned his hat in his hands, that telltale sign of discomfort. What I want is to keep helping, if you'll let me. Why? Because watching you give up on yourself feels wrong. He looked up, meeting her eyes with sudden intensity. You keep saying you're not good enough, but I see someone amazing, someone strong and brave and determined, and I want to keep showing you what I see until you believe it too. The air between them felt charged. Olivia's heart hammered against her ribs. I'm not amazing. I'm scared every moment of every day. Being scared doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. He took a step closer. Can I tell you something? I'm scared too. Of what? Of saying the wrong thing, of pushing too hard. Of making you uncomfortable, he paused. Of you telling me to leave you alone. Why would that scare you? His jaw worked, and she could see him wrestling with something. Finally, he said, because these past few days, helping you, teaching you, watching you grow stronger, it's been the best time I've had in years. and the thought of not having a reason to see you again feels like losing something precious." Olivia couldn't breathe. "Yates, I don't think I understand what you're saying. I'm saying I'd like to court you, properly, if you'd allow it." The words came out in a rush. "I know your father just passed. I know you've got a lot to deal with, and I'm not trying to take advantage. But I'd like the chance to show you that you're everything I see when I look at you. Not just capable or strong, but beautiful and intelligent and worthy of every good thing." She stared at him, utterly shocked. A man wanted to court her. This man who'd built her a house with his own hands, who believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. It felt like a dream. "I don't have anything to offer you," she said faintly. "I'm poor. I have no prospects. You could do so much better." "There you go again, telling yourself you're not enough." He closed the distance between them, reaching out to gently cup her face. His palm was rough against her cheek, warm and solid. "I don't want better, I want you. You barely know me. Then let me get to know you, that's what courting is." His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, a feather-light touch that made her shiver. "Please, Olivia, give me a chance. Give yourself a chance." She wanted to say yes more than she'd wanted anything in a long time, but fear held her back. "What if I'm not what you think I am? What if you get to know me and realize I'm just ordinary? What if you are exactly what I think, and you finally realize it too?" He smiled, and it transformed his face from merely handsome to breathtaking. "We could spend all day trading what-ifs. Or you could say yes and we could find out together." When he put it like that, her objection seemed silly, and the truth was she didn't want to say no. Despite everything, despite her fear and grief and exhaustion, she wanted this, wanted him. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, you can court me." His smile widened and he leaned down slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. When his lips touched hers, gentle and questioning, warmth flooded through her. The kiss was brief, chaste even, but it felt like a promise. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright. "I'll do right by you, Olivia Kane. I swear it." "I believe you," she said, and realized she meant it. He left as the sun was setting, promising to return the next day. Olivia stood in the doorway of her cabin, watching him ride away, and for the first time since her father died, she felt something other than despair. She felt hope. Over the following weeks, Yates became a constant presence in her life. He brought her furniture, a sturdy table, 2 chairs, a real bed frame with rope suspension for a mattress. He taught her how to hunt small game with snares, how to identify edible plants, how to read the weather in the clouds. When he found out she could sew, he bought her fabric and thread so she could make proper curtains and a better dress. "You don't have to keep buying me things," she protested one afternoon as he presented her with a bolt of blue calico. "I'm not buying you things. I'm making investments in our future," he said matter-of-factly. "Our future." The words made her heart skip. He came for dinner most evenings, bringing fresh milk from his cow or vegetables from his garden. She cooked simple meals, stretching their supplies, and they ate at her table while he told her about his day and asked about hers. She found herself talking more than she had in years, telling him about the books she'd read, her thoughts on everything from politics to poetry. "You really think women should be able to vote?" he asked one night, genuinely curious rather than dismissive. "Why shouldn't they? We're affected by the same laws as men. We pay taxes, we work, we raise children who will become citizens. Seems only fair we should have a say in how we're governed." She braced herself for an argument, but he just nodded thoughtfully. "Never looked at it that way, but you're right. My mother worked harder than any man I knew. Would have been nice if her voice counted for something." She stared at him. "You agree with me, why wouldn't I? You made a good point." He grinned. "You sound surprised. Most men don't like women with opinions. Most men are fools." He reached across the table and took her hand, a gesture that had become familiar. "I like everything about you, Olivia. Your opinions included, maybe especially your opinions." Moments like that made her heart swell. But there were still times, usually late at night when she was alone, that the old doubts crept back. What did she really know about building a life here? How could she possibly be enough for a man like Yates? One morning, about 6 weeks after they'd met, she woke to find frost on the ground. Fall was coming, and with it winter. She'd need more firewood, more provisions, warmer clothes. The small amount of money from selling her father's surveying equipment was nearly gone. She sat at her table trying to work out a budget, but the numbers didn't add up. She'd never make it through winter without help. Yates found her crying over her figures when he arrived that afternoon. "Hey, what's wrong?" He knelt beside her chair, concern etched on his face. "I can't make it work," she said, gesturing at the paper covered in her neat figures. "I'll run out of money before Christmas. I'll have to sell the land or find work in town, but there's no work for women that pays enough, and even if I sell, it won't be enough to live on for long. I was fooling myself thinking I could do this. Olivia, look at me." He waited until she met his eyes. "You're not going to starve, and you're not going to lose your land. I won't let that happen. You can't keep supporting me. It's not right." "Why not? We're courting." "Courting leads to marriage, and marriage means we support each other." She blinked at him through her tears. "You're thinking about marriage." "Of course I am. Aren't you?" He looked genuinely confused. "Why else would we be courting?" "I don't know. I thought maybe you just wanted companionship, or—" "Olivia." He took both her hands in his. "I want to marry you. I've wanted it since about the second day I knew you, when you held that board steady even though I could see your arms shaking from the weight. You didn't complain, didn't ask for help, just did what needed doing. That's when I knew," her breath caught. "Knew what?" "That you were the woman I wanted beside me for the rest of my life." He brought her hands to his lips, kissing her knuckles. "I love you. I should have said it before, but I'm saying it now. I love your strength and your intelligence and your stubbornness. I love the way you argue with me about politics and the way you sing under your breath when you're cooking. I love that you're trying so hard to be independent even when it terrifies you." His voice grew rough. "I love everything about you, and I want to spend forever showing you how amazing you are." Tears streamed down her face. "I'm not amazing." "Yes, you are. And I'm going to keep saying it until you believe me." He cupped her face, thumbs wiping away her tears. "Marry me, Olivia. Let me take care of you, not because you can't take care of yourself, but because I want to. Because taking care of each other is what love is." "I don't have anything to bring to a marriage," she whispered. "Just this land and a cabin you built. You have yourself, and that's everything I want." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the tip of her nose. "Say yes. Please say yes." She thought about the past weeks, the way he'd shown up every day without fail. The way he listened to her, taught her, believed in her. The way her heart lifted every time she saw him riding up the path. The way his kisses made her feel like she was floating. The way he looked at her like she was precious. He loved her. Actually loved her, flaws and fears and all. "Yes," she breathed. "Yes, I'll marry you." His kiss was fierce and joyful, and she kissed him back with everything in her. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "I'll make you happy," he promised. "I swear I'll spend every day making you happy." "You already do," she said, and realized it was true. Despite everything, despite her grief and fear and uncertainty, Yates Cross made her happy. They were married 3 weeks later in a simple ceremony at the church in Calistoga. Frank and his wife Martha were witnesses, along with a handful of Yates's friends from the surrounding ranches. Olivia wore a new dress, her first store-bought dress in years, cream-colored with lace at the collar. Yates wore his best suit, his hair neatly trimmed, his eyes never leaving her face. When the minister said, "You may kiss your bride," Yates pulled her close and kissed her like she was air and he'd been drowning. She heard someone chuckle, but she didn't care. She was married, to a good man who loved her. It felt like a miracle. They spent their wedding night in Olivia's cabin, which was now their cabin. Yates had brought flowers, wildflowers he'd picked himself, and spread them across the bed. He'd brought wine too, and they drank it from tin cups, laughing at the incongruity. "Not very fancy," he said, gesturing around the simple room. "It's perfect." She meant it. The cabin represented everything they'd built together, every bit of faith he'd shown in her. When he carried her to bed, she was nervous. Her mother had died before explaining much about marital relations, and her knowledge was vague at best. But Yates was patient and gentle, whispering how beautiful she was, how much he loved her, asking if she was all right. His tenderness made her cry, and he kissed away her tears. "I love you," she told him afterward, lying in his arms in the dark. "I don't think I really understood what love was until now." "What is it?" he asked, his voice drowsy. "It's someone seeing all your broken parts and not running away. It's someone believing in you when you can't believe in yourself. It's building something together, one board at a time." She tilted her head to kiss his jaw. "It's you." His arms tightened around her. "You're not broken, Olivia. You never were. You were just waiting for someone to see you clearly." Maybe he was right, or maybe his love had put her back together. Either way, she fell asleep feeling whole for the first time in her life. The next months were the happiest Olivia had ever known. They divided their time between her cabin and his ranch house, a slightly larger building with 2 rooms and a real wood floor. They combined their resources, her land providing grazing for his small herd of cattle, his experience teaching her the rhythms of ranch life. He taught her to ride properly, patiently correcting her posture and grip until she could gallop across the meadow without fear. He taught her to rope a calf, to brand cattle, to read the signs of illness in livestock. She taught him to read better, helping him work through the newspaper each evening. She took over his bookkeeping and discovered he was better off than he'd let on, his natural frugality having built up a decent savings. "Why didn't you tell me you had this much saved?" she asked one evening, looking at his bank book. He shrugged. "Didn't seem important. Money's just money. It's security, freedom. With this much, we could expand the herd, build a bigger house." "Do you want a bigger house?" She looked around their cozy cabin, at the curtains she'd sewn and the wildflowers on the table and her husband sitting across from her in the lamplight. "No, I want this." He smiled, that slow, wonderful smile that still made her heart race. "Good, me too." But they did expand the herd, buying 20 head of good breeding stock from a rancher down valley. With Olivia's land and Yates's combined, they had enough grazing for a substantial operation. They worked side by side through the winter, feeding cattle, mending fences, planning for spring. It was hard work, the kind that left them exhausted and aching at the end of each day. But it was satisfying too, building something together. Sometimes, Olivia would stop in the middle of a task and just watch Yates work, marveling that this strong, kind, patient man was her husband. That he'd chosen her. "What are you thinking about?" he asked one afternoon, catching her staring. "That I'm happy," she said simply. He set down the post-hole digger he'd been using and walked over to her. Yeah. She wrapped her arms around his neck. "I never thought I could be this happy. I didn't think I deserved it." His expression grew serious. "And now I'm starting to think that maybe you were right. Maybe I do deserve good things." She kissed him softly. "Thank you for showing me. Thank you for believing me." He pulled her close. "You know what else you deserve?" "What?" "A real house. Not just a cabin, but a proper home with multiple rooms and glass windows and a real stove. Somewhere we can raise a family. They'd been married 5 months, and though they'd talked vaguely about children, this was the first time he'd stated it so plainly. You want children with you? Absolutely. His hand came up to cradle her face. I want everything with you, Olivia, the whole life. Do you want that too? She thought about it, really thought about it. A year ago, she'd been drowning in grief and fear, certain she had no future. Now she was imagining children, a home, decades stretching ahead full of possibility. Yes, she said, I want that. They broke ground on the new house that spring. It would take time to build, but Yates planned it carefully, sketching out a design with a large main room, a separate bedroom, a kitchen with a real stove, and a loft for future children. They do most of the work themselves to save money, but Frank and some of the other neighbors had offered to help with the heavy lifting. It'll be beautiful, Olivia said, studying the sketches. Our home, Yates agreed. Everything we build together. As the weather warmed, Olivia discovered she was with child. She'd suspected for a few weeks but waited to be sure before telling Yates. When she finally did, over breakfast one morning, he went completely still. You're certain? He asked. As certain as I can be. Martha says I have all the signs. He stood slowly, came around the table and knelt before her, placing his hands on her still flat stomach. A baby, we made a baby. Are you happy? She asked, suddenly nervous. He looked up at her and his eyes were wet. Happy doesn't begin to cover it. I'm grateful, I'm amazed, I'm scared out of my mind, he laughed shakily. But mostly I'm just so full of love I don't know what to do with it all. She ran her fingers through his hair. You're going to be an amazing father. I hope so. I hope I can show our child what you've shown me, that love means believing in someone completely. The house went up slowly through the summer. Olivia couldn't do as much heavy work as her pregnancy progressed, but she helped where she could, measuring and marking, holding tools, making sure the men working always had water and food. She sewed curtains for the new windows, beautiful glass windows Yates had ordered from San Francisco. She planned where furniture would go, where the cradle would sit. As her belly swelled, so did her confidence. She'd learned so much over the past year. She could ride, rope, shoot, track, survive. She could keep books, manage a household, plan for the future. She'd built a life from nothing but determination and the faith of a good man. One evening in late summer, sitting on the porch of their nearly finished house, watching the sunset paint the hills gold and purple, Yates took her hand. You remember what you said that first day on your land? He asked. Which part? I said a lot of things. You said you weren't good enough, that you weren't strong or smart or capable enough. She flinched at the memory. I was in a dark place. You were scared. But look at you now. He gestured at the house, the land, her pregnant belly. Look at everything you've accomplished, everything you are. She looked, really looked. The house was solid and beautiful, built with their own hands. The land was green and thriving, cattle grazing peacefully. Her husband sat beside her, solid and loving. And inside her, a baby grew, a tiny life they'd created together. I guess I've come a long way, she said softly. You were always everything, Olivia. You just needed time to see it. He lifted her hand to his lips. But I'll spend forever reminding you just in case you forget. Forever. She smiled. That's a long time. Not long enough, he said, and kissed her. Their son was born in February 1880, during a cold snap that frosted the windows and required keeping the fire blazing day and night. The labor was long and frightening, but Martha was there, coaching her through it, and when it was over, Olivia held a squalling, red-faced baby boy. He's perfect, Yates breathed, touching the baby's tiny hand with one finger. Look at him. Look what we made. They named him James, after Yates's father. He was a healthy baby with a good set of lungs and his father's dark hair. Yates was completely besotted, spending hours just watching the baby sleep, jumping up at the slightest cry. "You need to rest," Olivia told him one night, watching him pace with James over his shoulder. "I can handle him." "I know you can. You can handle anything." He kissed the baby's head. "But I want to help. I want him to know his father is here for him always." She understood. Yates's father had died when he was young, leaving him and his mother to struggle alone. He was determined to be present for his son in a way his father hadn't been able to be. As James grew, Yates was true to his word. He carried the baby in a sling while doing chores, talked to him constantly, sang him silly songs that made Olivia laugh. When James took his first steps, Yates was there to catch him. When he said his first word, "Da," Yates nearly cried. "He's going to be spoiled," Olivia said, watching Yates let James help mend a fence by handing him nails. "Good. A child should know he's loved." Yates lifted James onto his shoulders, making the toddler shriek with delight. "No one's going to make my son feel like he isn't enough." The words hit her square in the chest. Yates remembered. Even now, years later, he remembered her pain and was determined their child would never feel it. "Come here," she said, and when he came close, she kissed him deeply. "I love you. Have I told you that today?" "Only 3 times, but who's counting?" he grinned. "I love you too." Life settled into a rhythm. The ranch prospered, their careful management and hard work paying off. They added more cattle, bought a bull with good bloodlines, built a proper barn. Olivia kept meticulous records, tracking breeding and births and sales with the skill that had once impressed her father. Yates handled the physical work, though he always consulted her on major decisions. "Should we sell the yearlings now or hold until spring?" he'd ask. "Spring. Prices will be better, and we have enough feed to carry them through winter." "That's what I thought, but I wanted your opinion." He always wanted her opinion, valued it, acted on it. It was a partnership in the truest sense, each bringing their strengths to build something neither could have built alone. When James was 3, Olivia gave birth to twin girls, Emma and Grace. Yates handled the shock of 2 babies better than she did, diving into diaper changes and midnight feedings with the same dedication he brought to everything. "How are you so calm?" she asked one night, exhausted and overwhelmed with 1 baby on each breast. "Because we're in this together." He took Emma when she finished nursing, burping her expertly. "Besides, you gave birth to them. Least I can do is help care for them." The twins were a handful, but James adored them, helping fetch clean diapers and singing them the songs his father had sung to him. The house rang with noise and life and love. 5 years later, another son arrived, Samuel. Then, 3 years after that, when Olivia thought they were surely done, a surprise daughter, Rose. 5 children in 12 years, a house bursting at the seams, and Olivia had never been happier. "We need to add another room," she told Yates, watching the children tumble over each other like puppies in the main room. "I'll start on it next week." He pulled her against his side. "Thought we might be done having babies after Rose. Are you disappointed we have so many?" He looked at her like she'd grown a second head. "Disappointed? Olivia, every one of our children is a gift. This life we've built, this noisy, chaotic, beautiful life, it's everything I ever wanted and things I didn't even know to want." She leaned into him, watching James, now 13, help 7-year-old Samuel with his reading while the twins chased Rose around the table. "I never imagined this. When I was standing at my father's grave, I thought my life was over. I thought I had nothing to offer the world. And now I think I just needed someone to believe in me until I could believe in myself." He turned her to face him. "Do you believe in yourself now?" She considered it honestly. She'd built a successful ranch, raised 5 healthy children, managed finances that kept them comfortable even through hard years. She could ride, shoot, rope, and handle any task the ranch required. She taught her children reading and arithmetic, nursed them through illness, guided them through growing pains. She was respected in town, sought out for advice on bookkeeping and household management. "Yes," she said, "I do. I finally believe I'm enough." "You're not enough," Yates said, and her heart stuttered until he continued. "You're more than enough. You're everything, Olivia. Everything I need, everything our children need, everything you've always been. I'm just glad you finally see it." She kissed him, pouring 15 years of love and gratitude into it. "Thank you for showing me. Thank you for believing me." He rested his forehead against hers. "And thank you for saying yes that day. Best decision either of us ever made." "Second best," she corrected. "Best was you deciding to help a scared woman on raw land." "No, that was just following my heart. My heart knew you were special before my head caught up." James made a gagging noise. "Are you two going to be mushy all evening? Because some of us are trying to eat." The younger children giggled, and Yates released Olivia with a laugh. "Sorry, son. Sometimes your old man just needs to appreciate his wife." "You appreciate her every day," Emma said. "Samuel, stop throwing bread." Olivia watched her family, warm and fed and loved, and felt peace settle into her bones. This was what Yates had seen that day when she'd whispered she wasn't good enough. Not what she was, but what she could become with someone believing in her. No, that wasn't quite right. He'd seen who she already was underneath the fear. He'd just held up a mirror until she could see it too. The years continued to pass, bringing the usual joys and sorrows. They lost cattle to harsh winters and illness. They celebrated when James won the county roping competition. They worried when Emma broke her arm falling from a horse. They mourned when Frank Olson passed away, grateful he'd lived long enough to see their family grow. They danced at the twins' 18th birthday party. They cried when Samuel left to study engineering in San Francisco, though he came home every summer to help with the ranch. Through it all, Yates kept his promise. On hard days when Olivia doubted herself, when she worried she wasn't being a good enough mother or rancher or wife, he was there with steady words and steadier love. "You're doing fine," he'd say. "Better than fine. You're doing exactly what needs doing." "How do you know?" "Because I've been watching you for 25 years, and I've never seen you do anything less than your best. Trust yourself, Olivia. You've earned it." And she did trust herself, more with each passing year. She became the woman Yates had always insisted she was: strong, capable, confident, worthy. Not because he'd made her that way, but because he'd believed in her until she could believe in herself. On their 25th wedding anniversary, the whole family gathered for a celebration. The children, some with families of their own now, filled the house with noise and laughter. James's wife Sarah helped cook while bouncing their baby daughter on her hip. Emma and Grace, both married to local ranchers, argued good-naturedly about the best way to train a horse. Samuel regaled them with stories from the city. Rose, at 15, rolled her eyes at her siblings' antics but smiled the whole time. That night, after everyone had gone home or to bed, Yates and Olivia sat on the porch, watching the stars like they had so many times before. "Hard to believe it's been 25 years, he said. "Seems like yesterday and a lifetime ago all at once." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Do you ever regret it, tying yourself to a woman who had nothing, Olivia Cross? Are you really asking me that after a quarter century?" "Just checking," she smiled. "Making sure you still think I'm everything." "Let me think." He stroked his chin in mock consideration. "You've given me 5 incredible children and 2 grandchildren so far. You've helped build a ranch that's the envy of the county. You've been my partner in every decision and my comfort in every sorrow. You've made me laugh every single day and made me feel loved every single moment." He pulled her into his lap. "Yeah, I guess I still think you're everything." She kissed him, deep and slow, tasting the years in it. When she pulled back, she said, "You know what the best part is?" "What?" "I finally believe it too. When you say I'm everything, I don't argue anymore. I actually believe I'm worthy of you, of this life, of everything we've built." His eyes gleamed in the starlight. "That's all I ever wanted. For you to see yourself the way I see you. You spent forever showing me. Best forever I ever spent." He tucked a strand of gray-streaked hair behind her ear. "And I've got another forever ahead of me. Maybe this time I'll convince you that you're not just everything, you're beyond everything." She laughed. "That might take longer than forever." "Good thing I'm patient." He kissed her forehead. "Besides, I've got practice, been proving things to you since 1878, and you've never given up, never will." He held her close as the night deepened around them. "That's what love is, Olivia. Showing up every day and saying you're worthy, you're capable, you're everything until the person you love believes it in their bones. Is that what the ranch is too? Proof. The ranch, the house, the children, all of it. Every board I hammered, every calf we delivered, every meal we shared. All of it saying the same thing. You deserve good things. You deserve love. You deserve a life as big and beautiful as the one we've built." She thought about that scared young woman standing at her father's grave, certain she had no future. She thought about the cabin built in 3 days by a man who saw past her fear. She thought about every moment since, every challenge met, every joy celebrated, every year that proved she was exactly who Yates always said she was. "I love you," she said simply. "For seeing me when I couldn't see myself. For believing in me when I had no faith. For spending forever showing me I was everything." "Love you too," he said. "For letting me. For becoming who you always were underneath. For building this forever with me." They sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd long since learned how to be together without needing words. The wind whispered through the pines. An owl called somewhere in the darkness. The house behind them stood solid, testament to what could be built with love and faith and stubborn determination. And Olivia Cross, formerly Olivia Kane, once a scared young woman who thought she was nothing, knew deep in her soul that she was everything. Not because someone had told her, though that had helped, but because she'd lived it, earned it, proved it to herself through years of showing up and doing the work and believing, finally, that she deserved the beautiful life she'd built. She was enough. She'd always been enough. She just needed someone to hold up a mirror until she could see it too. And Yates had spent forever doing exactly that.